Well, good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be together. I am coming to you from down the mountain in Western Carolina. Our family went camping last night, and this is the place where the internet worked. So I smell like a campfire, and I'm very happy. And I was just racing to be here with you today. Happy to celebrate this day with you with the beautiful fall weather and blue skies. Just such a great day to celebrate life and come together in the spirit of love. I'd like to invite especially those of you who are here for the first time or back for the first time in a long time. Now, of course, this is the first week we're asking everybody to register as they come in. That's just helps the office keep track of who's who in a COVID-19 time. But if you are new, I'd like to invite you to join the ORUUC Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, it's just look up ORUUC in the search bar and you'll find the group there. Secondly, to stay on this in this room, in this Zoom room after the service. You don't have to do anything, just keep on hanging around. Jeannie Cuevas will meet folks then, and that is a newcomer group that we call Inquirers. It's a chance for people to get to know one another and to connect with ORUUC and find out what's going on here, as well as to learn a little bit about Unitarian Universalism. For years, it has been our practice to send half of the undesignated offering out the door and into the world through our Split the Plate program. For this month of September, our Split the Plate recipient, by vote of the congregation in June, is the Fresh Fruit for Kids at Risk ministry. Now, typically, we support ministries that are out in the wider community and run by other people, but the Fresh Fruit Ministry is started here with ORUUC as part of our reverse offering years ago now, with the thought that kids in our school system who get non-perishable food on Friday afternoons as they head home for a weekend should also have access to fresh fruit. So this ministry for years now has gone around to make sure that food insecure kids from food insecure households in our community have a piece of fresh fruit. And that's a reminder not only of a lifetime habit of nourishing diet, but also that somebody out there cares. And that somebody, as you share your gifts today, will be you. So please give generously to support the Fresh Fruit for At-Risk Kids ministry in our offering today. There's a special community event today at 3 p.m. at the site of the old Scarborough School. There will be a celebration and worship service for celebrating the 65th anniversary of the desegregation of schools in Oak Ridge. 85 brave Black high school students in 1955 entered the heretofore segregated Oak Ridge High School. And today is a day to honor and celebrate that courage and that legacy and the mandate for Oak Ridge High School to continue to be a leader in racial justice. So I hope you will turn out at 3 p.m. this afternoon at the site of the old Scarborough School. Please bring a lawn chair and comfortable clothing. Water will be provided. And Harold Middlebrook, who is a Knoxville-based civil rights icon, just a hero, he will be speaking. So truly an opportunity to catch if you can. Last of all, for announcements today, second of last of all, I'd like to introduce someone who is new among us, new in our community. Now, for this last year, ORUUC has been privileged to be in a relationship with ministerial intern Juniper Stinnett. She is returning this week, starting her second year. So welcome back, Juniper. But having learned a little bit about how good it can be to work with a ministerial intern and support that ministry, ORUUC has said yes to a second intern this year. Clovis Lewis comes to us from Northern California, where he's going to be through this whole year. Part of the blessings of going virtual is that we can do ministry from all over the place. So Clovis has woken up early on Pacific time zone and will continue to wake up early through this year. Clovis comes to us after long dual careers in tech entrepreneurship, most recently with a lot of online learning, but most recently working in housing justice with tech issues related to that. But second career in playing the cello and teaching the cello. He has at times combined those two vocations, being a professor of computer music. He's also been active as a lay leader in his congregation, serving as president of the board twice in his local congregation, and well known by the members of the Pacific Coastal District lay leaders. By all accounts, there have been emails rolling in through the summer saying how lucky our congregation is to be able to work with Clovis. So we are doubly blessed. We are blessed to welcome back Juniper today, and we are blessed to welcome Clovis to ministry among us and with us this year. So welcome, Clovis. One final announcement will come from a video, and it's Christine Rader, the Director of Faith Formation. So let's see that short video now.
Good morning. I'm Christine Rader, Director of Faith Formation, but this morning I am here on behalf of the executive team. It's no secret that I love a good story, and this month it's my distinct pleasure to tell you one about a mother and daughter team who took some fabric, wooden peg figures, and a camera and turned them into magic. Rebecca Bowman and her daughter, Erica Intrup, have spent the last 2 months digitizing our entire catalog of Spirit Play stories. Rebecca has been a leader in Spirit Play for almost 10 years, and no one knows our stories better. Erica is a professional artist currently residing in Oak Ridge while she awaits entry into Cuba to join her fiance. Together, they have been combining their talents and making a new video of a story almost daily for the last month. Because we will continue to have Sunday Faith Formation online for the near future, this is a very special gift. Stories give us the chance to connect to sacred wisdom and share the human experience. And finding new ways to experience them helps us learn more about our times and ourselves. These stories will be shared with our Spirit Players and will be part of the Stories for All Ages used in worship, including today. In addition to her leadership in Spirit Play, Rebecca has served on the executive team and been a founder and leader of the Oak Ridge Interfaith Partnership, which is dedicated to opening conversations, learning, and fellowship with people of all faiths in Oak Ridge. She is also leading a small group ministry called Community Education and Development, which seeks to educate the public about civic matters. And she's probably started something else since I started talking, because she does a lot. So for the month of December, on behalf of the executive team, it is my distinct pleasure to announce that Erica Intrup and Rebecca Bowman are our volunteers of the month and will be given bouquets from Nancy Starr with our deep appreciation. Thank you, Rebecca and Erica.
Today we conclude our series on beauty with a call to contemplative action in the world. Contemplation connects us to beauty, beauty in our world and in one another. Contemplation empties us and readies us to become instruments of the good, people of compassion, seekers of justice. Today we commit ourselves to practicing a way of beauty that grows us into agents of divine beauty, people who live lives that are rich, courageous, generous, and joyful.
For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. God of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
When I see you as myself, when I covet your happiness as much as my own, when I crave your presence in my life, then compassion indwells and takes root. Then I cannot see you as anything but beautiful, because we are part of the divine whole. Justice flows from this wholeness. Lighting a chalice is easy. Keeping the flame lit in our hearts is a matter of touching the deep roots of compassion that delight in our constant communion with each other. Come, let us light this chalice together.
As we close out our series on beauty, I will remind you how beautiful it is to sing together. Will you join me in our opening hymn? It's Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from grief to giving.
And now I'd like to invite us into a moment of stillness, prayerful contemplation. You might rest your gaze on some spot in the room or behind your eyelids and just settle into the moment as we gather for our ritual of altar building. As part of our altar building, you might choose to light a candle and hold it up to the screen to share your light with people as we get connected across light waves ourselves, and share one word within the chat box that represents a hope or a prayer or a concern or something beautiful in your life. And for prayer requests, you can email those to the email listed on the screen, oruuc.community.prayers@gmail.com, and they will be incorporated into our spoken prayer. Let us gather and worship, sharing light, sharing love, as we come in observation of the beautiful.
When you're tired and feel you can't get through, uncertainty comes over you, just look around. When your problems seem too much to bear, unsure if there's someone who cares, just look around.
Whether stranger, neighbor, family, or friend, on each other in tough times we can depend. Look around, kindness, love is ours to share. We can see it everywhere, though it might seem like forever. Look around, even in the darkest night, things are gonna be alright. We'll get through this together, just look around.
Sometimes it can be hard to see, life is full of possibilities, so look around. Each new day is such a gift, embrace it and the life you live, and look around.
Outstretched arms and many helping hands. Don't give up on all your dreams and all your plans. Look around, kindness, love is ours to share. We can see it everywhere, though it might seem like forever. Look around, for even in our darkest night, things are gonna be alright. We'll get through this together, just look around.
I invite you into a time of prayer, of going inward. Let yourself rest easy where you are seated, feeling yourself held by the floor, by the chair. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in to that place. Close your eyes or rest your gaze on something softly. And breathe in this air that your body needs, and breathe out all that you do not need. just focus on that breath, breathing in and breathing out, settling, paying attention to the breath, going inward. O divine beauty, spirit of life that dwells within us and dances among us and beckons us beyond our own separate lives. We come this morning humbly. We come knowing that there is so much that we are not in control of, that we are riding along in a time of uncertainty, in a time of anxiety, in a time that might overwhelm and sometimes does, but we are also here with one another. We are also enveloped in beauty and in commitment. O Spirit of Life, help us to be a community that vulnerably shares both our joys and our burdens, and hear now our heart's longings. We have one among us who asks that we hold in tender and loving care a family who lost their newborn child. That beloved, long-awaited child will be buried today. O Spirit, such grief is unfathomable, and we hold in care this family who has lost so deeply. May they be surrounded by love. May they be held tenderly, moment by moment, for as long as they need to be held. We call to mind and heart now all who have lost loved ones, and especially those who have lost young ones. We call to mind and heart those whose children are at risk, those whose futures are not certain. O Spirit of Life, help us to be those people who do what must be done in the face of such tragedy and who call for the health and safety of our children. And for those who have lost loved ones, even later in life, we know how deep that grief is and that grief connects us all. For we all know or will know such loss. May we be held in love, and may we hold others. O Spirit of Life, hear also our great rejoicing for those who have won the battle of addiction and will keep on winning it day by day. For those who are free from something that has held them down. For those who welcome the birth of a new child, healthy and sleeping in their arms. O Spirit, be with us as we rejoice, as we welcome the beauty in our lives, as the beauty that envelops us helps us to be those people who live lives of love and seeking justice and knowing in our very being that we are all one. We belong together, we belong to each other. in our heavy burdens and in our uplifting joys, may we be, truly be, as one. In the silence now, let us hold and honor those things not yet ready to be shared, for that too is part of our oneness. Amen. Blessed be.
Don't lose faith, keep hope alive, 'cause together we'll get to the other side. When you feel weak, I'll be strong and remind you that you're never alone.
Look around, kindness, love is ours to share. We can see it everywhere. Though it might seem like forever, look around, for even in our darkest night, things are gonna be alright. We'll get through this together. Just look around. Look around this together. Just look around.
And now I'd like to invite us into the spiritual act of stewardship and giving and sharing and turning the fruits of our labors into fresh fruits for kids. I invite you to give as you are willing, give as you are able, give from the heart. May the gifts of the people be received. This is the via transformativa. As the sun nourishes the fruit on the branch, so does your love nourish your gift, turning numbers into nutrition for people in need. May your gifts be of love. May they sustain. May this be an act of the, an act of the Spirit.
Rooted in love, we covenant together in peace, to face conflict with compassion, to see strength in diversity, to share laughter and tears, to honor the profound in each of us. With purpose and passion, we care for one another and grow together, rooted in love.
The long-handled spoons, an ancient story reported to have originated in Japan. Once a woman asked God to show her a glimpse of heaven and hell. God agreed. God first led the woman to a large room. In the middle of the room was a fire with a big cooking pot bubbling away on it, and in the pot was a delicious stew. All around the cooking pot sat a crowd of people. They had long-handled spoons. The people looked pale and thin and wretched. There was an icy stillness in the room. The handles of the spoons were so long that no one was able to get the lovely food into their mouths. God turned to the woman and said, "This is hell." Then God led the woman to a second room. It looked exactly like the first. In the middle, a fire was blazing, and a cooking pot was bubbling away, full of the same delicious stew. A crowd of people sat around the pot and held the same long-handled spoons. But these people looked lively and happy. They were enjoying talking with each other. And the difference? The people in the second room were not trying to feed themselves with the long-handled spoons. They were using the spoons to feed each other. The woman turned to God and said, "Ah, this is heaven."
Beneath our arms we shelter you. You warm our hearts as you pass through. May God guide you as you go, to help you learn and help you grow.
Compassion for others and creating more compassion in the wider world begins with compassion for ourselves. Awareness of suffering in others often originates in awareness of suffering in ourselves. Today, our Lectio Divina is from American Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. Jake will deliver the Sermo Divina, and then we'll enjoy the holy images of our Visio Divina.
If we find ourselves unworkable and give up on ourselves, then we'll find others unworkable and give up on them. What we hate in ourselves, we'll hate in others. To the degree that we have compassion for ourselves, we will also have compassion for others. Having compassion starts and ends with having compassion for all those unwanted parts of ourselves, all those imperfections that we don't even want to look at.
This month, our theme is imagination. And today is also the final in our series of Sunday services called Beguiled by Beauty, which has asked us to engage our lives and each other with the depth of contemplative practice and the heart of compassion. Now, imagination and compassion may seem to only be distant cousins, but I think imagination is at the heart of compassion. The two are intertwined. Here is an example. I like to write funny stories. The last few weeks I've been working on a story about a woman who, for complicated reasons, needs to do delicate brain surgery on her husband. Now, it's an intense marriage and she's got mixed feelings about how she'd like this surgery that she's about to do to turn out. It's meant to be a funny story, but inhabiting that perspective also asks me to have compassion, to try to imagine what a person in that strange situation could possibly be up against. Here's another example. A couple of years ago, as some of you know, I played the role of Pa Carnes in the musical Oklahoma. I was ready to have some fun playing Pa Carnes and acting the fool, just playing it for laughs. But the director wanted me to do more than just clown around. He wanted me to dig deep and to understand why Pa Carnes would act like he does and say the things he does. Imagination, I learned, required compassion, and compassion required imagination. So how could a person use imagination to deepen compassion? Well, I think imagination and compassion make a three-layer bean dip of contemplative practice made of information, inquiry, and invention. First, let's look at what information has to do with all of this. As the story goes, a young Prince Siddhartha Gautama had always lived in luxury, protected from the pain of the world. But one day he gets curious and goes outside the gates of the palace. And there he encounters disease and poverty and aging and death. From there, the story goes on to tell us how Siddhartha Gautama becomes the Buddha. But I'd like to stop with that early part of the story before he gets curious and has only ever known the inside of the palace. Could we expect him to have compassion without any knowledge of the outside world? Brian Stevenson, who's the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama, talks about the importance of getting proximate to suffering. We think imagination is just sitting in our houses making stuff up. But to be artists of compassion, we need to feed our imagination with information. The information of experience, the information of encounter. Like that prince or like any artist of living, we need information to fuel imagination. Secondly, inquiry. This Tuesday morning, everyone is invited to an online session called Bridges Out of Poverty that's sponsored by Agape House of Oak Ridge. Now, Bridges Out of Poverty might sound like a self-help class for people in poverty, but it's actually a training for middle-class people who volunteer and work with people in poverty, because it can be easy for middle-class people to think they know everything and to proceed from the assumption of objectivity. In light of a middle-class worldview, Some choices by people in poverty just don't make sense. For instance, missing a job interview to watch a neighbor's kid for the morning. For a middle-class person for whom financial security is all, that's a bad move. But for someone in poverty for whom a network of relationships is often more reliable and sustaining than where you happen to get your paycheck, prioritizing relationships and caregiving over the prospect of a job would make perfect sense. So after getting out in the world, getting that information that comes from being proximate and feeding your imagination with information, the next layer of that 3-layer bean dip, I'm trying that out, calling it a 3-layer bean dip. The next layer down of that 3-layer bean dip after information is inquiry, adopting a spirit of wonder and not certainty. Third of all, the 3rd layer down, invention. After information and inquiry comes invention. Once we've gotten the information that comes from being proximate to suffering, and once we've used inquiry to explore what we encounter and what it could mean, there comes the question of how we'll respond. Many of us have developed a limited repertoire for how to respond to a moment. We become the helper or the critic or the quiet one or the joker. We slip into these roles without thinking twice. It's just what we do. But compassion engaged without mindful consideration can be worse than rote. It can be to prescribe the wrong medicine to some suffering that we don't understand. That's why compassion requires invention of us. Each person, each story, each encounter exists on its own terms with its own complexities and its own context, each one deserving more than our old bag of tricks. So as I see it, that's the 3-layer bean dip of imagination intertwined with compassion. Information, asking what are the facts. Inquiry, asking what it could mean. And invention, asking what in response will I do. Information, inquiry, and invention. Now, all of this seems pretty matter of fact, but to adopt this stance, to practice compassion fueled by imagination, asks us first to move through our own fear. In her book, Political Tribes, Instinct and the Fate of Nations, the author Amy Chua says that tribes aren't just about belonging, they're also about exclusion. They're not just about supporting other members, but about attacking others. Chua says, when other groups feel threatened, they retreat into tribalism. They close ranks and become more insular, more defensive, more punitive, more us versus them. That kind of fear-based behavior, closing ranks and only ever huddling with your fellow like-minded, not only works against compassion for others, it works against our own capacity to imagine. When we practice the narrow certainty of tribalism, we decide to give up on moral imagination. We no longer pursue information or inquiry or invention, and instead orient our actions toward upholding our us versus them view. We do this because it feels safer in the moment to reward ourselves with the comfort of certainty than it feels to enter the waters of the unknown, to engage one whose life and perspective is different, and whose pain may be initially beyond our comprehension. So practicing the imagination in compassion means taming our fear. Here in September 2020, the world is in a mess, maybe as it always has been, but in some ways worse than ever. We might have every reason to shrink from the moment, to hide in our corners with others who think and see as we do, practicing that old temptation of confirmation bias. But we are heirs to a radical tradition that affirmed God's redeeming love for every last soul, whether we liked them or not, that saw our part in the work of love as to enter those places of hell and to companion the suffering toward their liberation, even as we seek ourselves to leave the hell of our own suffering, bitterness, and fear. It's a challenging tradition we've decided to follow because it's so much more gratifying to be certain, to declare ourselves irrefutably correct, than it is to engage the world in humbler fashion with compassion. But that's the course prescribed to us by the vision of the beloved community, not the destruction of all others, but the transformation of the whole world through all-conquering love. As we seek a path forward, as we seek to learn how to engage others with imagination of compassion, we give thanks to those who came before us, who made a way out of no way, workers in the labor movement who sought and secured conditions we now take for granted, those 85 Black students in the Oak Ridge school system who in 1955 boldly integrated Oak Ridge, those mentors and ancestors whose examples we follow, practitioners of justice, yes indeed, but also, I'd say, artists, those who harness their imagination and compassion for others and themselves into courageous lives that provoked and invited transformation. So as we dream of justice in our times, as we dream of the day when suffering is over, let us also be artists of compassion, staying alert and alive and remembering that information, inquiry, and invention will lead us to new perspective and new transforming relations upon which the fate of this whole world hangs. We're now going to see a montage of images collected and shared by members of ORUUC, an inspiration as we head out into the week and evidence that being curious, imaginative, and compassionate participants of the world seeking beauty in each day is already afoot here among us. Let's enjoy.
Throughout our time, contemplating the theology of beauty and divine goodness, we have been making the connections between the well-being of our souls to the well-being of the whole earth and all beings. My prayer is that you will continue to use the contemplative practices experienced in this time to cultivate your life of compassion. The note for this week is a quote from Dr. Farley. A contemplative life can empty us and ready us to become instruments of the good for the beauty of the earth. May it continue to be so. And now let us add our singing to the song of creation already in progress.
One, two, ready, sing.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from on earth, over and around us lies. Source of all truth is this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of near and die, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all truth is this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and
And now as we turn from this hour, may we be fools for love and pilgrims for justice. And until we meet again, may we walk, roll, and move in beloved community. Go in peace.
Source of all